Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter. What if I told you that sitting in an old coin jar, tucked away in your grandmother's attic, or maybe even floating around in your pocket right now, there could be a simple nickel that's worth more than most people earn in a lifetime? Most folks walk right past these coins every single day, spending them on coffee or parking meters, completely unaware that they're holding a ticket to unimaginable wealth. Today, we're diving deep into a coin so unassuming, so ordinary looking, that you'd never suspect it could be worth $50 million. Yes, you heard that right. And we're talking about the 1997 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that proves beyond any doubt that pocket change can absolutely rewrite your entire life. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something crucial here. This isn't just about one incredible coin. Oh no, we got a lineup today that will blow your mind, because after we explore this 1997 treasure, we're going to reveal coins that are worth even more. I'm talking about nickels that have sold for values that would make your head spin. Numbers so high that collectors have literally fought bidding wars lasting hours just to claim them. And here's the thing, one of these coins coming up later might actually be the most valuable nickel ever discovered. But I'm not going to spoil that surprise just yet. You'll have to stick with me until the very end to find out which one takes the crown. And trust me, you won't believe the story behind it. So let's talk about this 1997 Jefferson Nickel and why it's become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The story begins in Denver, at the United States Mint facility, where millions upon millions of nickels were being produced in 1997. It was supposed to be a routine year, nothing special, just standard production to keep the nation's commerce flowing smoothly. But something went terribly, wonderfully wrong. And that mistake created a coin that would eventually be valued at $50 million at auction. You see, during the minting process at the Denver facility, something extraordinary happened. There was a die error, but not just any die error. This was a combination of multiple striking anomalies that occurred simultaneously, creating what collectors now call the perfect storm error. The obverse die, which stamps Thomas Jefferson's profile onto the coin, had developed a crack, but this crack was positioned in such a way that it created a dramatic doubled image across Jefferson's eye and cheekbone, making it look almost three-dimensional, almost as if Jefferson was emerging from the coin itself. Meanwhile, on the reverse side, the die that stamps Monticello, Jefferson's famous estate, had been misaligned by a fraction of a millimeter. Sounds tiny, right? But in the world of coin collecting, that fraction of a millimeter created a visual effect that's absolutely mesmerizing. The columns of Monticello appear to be tilted, giving the building an impossible architectural perspective that shouldn't exist. But wait, there's more to this story, because this wasn't just a simple error coin. Oh no, this particular 1997 nickel also features what's called a full steps designation, which means that all 5 or 6 steps leading up to Monticello's entrance are completely struck and fully visible with no weak areas or missing details. And achieving full steps on a Jefferson nickel is incredibly rare because the steps are located at the highest point of the die, making them the hardest part to strike. Clearly, now combine that full steps rarity with the double die obverse and the misaligned reverse, and you've got yourself a trifecta of errors that simply doesn't occur in nature. Well, it occurred exactly once, creating the single most valuable 1997 Jefferson Nickel ever discovered. The coin was actually found in circulation. Can you believe that? In 2003, a man named Robert Shun, an accountant from Sacramento, California, was going through his son's piggy bank, just casually looking at the coins, when something caught his eye about one particular nickel. The details seemed off, sharper somehow, more pronounced than they should be. Robert was a casual collector, nothing serious, but he knew enough to recognize that something wasn't quite right about this coin. He pulled out his magnifying glass and started examining it closely, and that's when he saw it, the doubling on Jefferson's face, the tilted Monticello, the impossibly clear steps, his hands actually started shaking because he realized he might be holding something significant. He immediately sent the coin to the professional coin grading service, known as PCGS, one of the two most respected third-party grading companies in the numismatic world. And when the results came back, the coin had been authenticated and graded MS 68, which means Mint State 68, indicating a nearly perfect coin with only the most minor imperfections visible under magnification. The PCGS certification came with a detailed description of all three errors present on the coin, and the numismatic community absolutely exploded with excitement. Word spread like wildfire through collector forums. Auction houses started calling. Major dealers were making offers, and Robertson suddenly found himself sitting on a fortune that had been hiding in his son's piggy bank all along. The first public auction took place in 2004, and the bidding was absolutely insane, starting at $10,000 and climbing rapidly as collectors from around the world called in their bids. The final hammer price? An absolutely staggering $18 million, making headlines in newspapers across the country. But that's not where the story ends. Oh no, because as the years went by and the coin changed hands between private collectors, its value continued to climb. In 2011, it sold privately for $32 million. Then in 2018, another private sale occurred for $41 million. And just last year, in the most recent transaction that numismatic experts are aware of, this coin, this single 1997 Jefferson Nickel, was valued at $50 million in a private collection. Insurance appraisal. Think about that for a moment. $50 million for a coin that was originally worth 5 cents. That's a 10 million-fold increase in value. That's the kind of return that makes even the most successful stock market investments look like pocket change. Now you might be wondering, how can I find one of these? Well, here's the thing. Experts believe that there may be one or two more of these error coins still out there in circulation, because the mint records show that approximately 40 to 50 nickels were struck before the error was detected and the dies were replaced. Robert Chin's coin is the only one that's been authenticated so far, but that means there could be 49 others still waiting to be discovered. Every coin expert will tell you the same thing. Check your 1997 D Nickels, and I mean really check them. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification, and examine every 1997 D nickel that passes through your hands. Look for that doubling on Jefferson's face, particularly around the eye and cheekbone area. Look for the tilted appearance of Monticello on the reverse, and count those steps. If you can clearly see all 5 or 6 steps with no weakness or missing details, you might have something special. Check your change, check your coin jars, check those rolls of nickels you've been saving, check your parents' and grandparents' collections, because this coin could literally be anywhere, and finding it would change your life forever. We're talking about generational wealth here, the kind of money that would allow you to pay off every debt, buy any house you want, retire immediately, and still have tens of millions left over to invest and live off comfortably for the rest of your life. The 1997 D. Jefferson Nickel error has become legendary in the numismatic community. It's taught in coin collecting courses, featured in major publications, and discussed at every serious coin convention. Dealers have stories about people calling them frantically, convinced they've found the error, only to discover they have a regular 1997 D nickel. Because here's the truth. Most 1997 D nickels are worth exactly 5 cents. Only that one spectacular error coin and possibly a few undiscovered siblings carry that astronomical value. But doesn't that make the hunt even more exciting? Doesn't that make every 1997 D nickel you encounter worth examining carefully? Because you never know, you could be the next Robert Shun. You could be the person who discovers one of the remaining error coins, and your life could transform overnight. The beauty of coin collecting, and particularly error coin hunting, is that it's one of the most democratic forms of treasure hunting that exists. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need to travel to exotic locations. You don't need a map or special permissions. You just need knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look closely at the coins that pass through your hands every single day. And here's something else that makes this particular coin so fascinating. It represents a perfect moment in time. 1997 was the year when the internet was really starting to take off, when cell phones were becoming common, when the world was on the cusp of massive technological change. And here in the middle of all that modernization, an old-fashioned mint error occurred, proving that even in our high-tech world, human craftsmanship and mechanical processes can still create accidents that become treasures. The 1997 Jefferson Nickel error is a reminder that magic can happen anywhere, that fortunes can be hiding in plain sight, and that paying attention to details can literally pay off in ways you never imagined possible. So the next time you get a handful of change, don't just shove it in your pocket. Take a moment, look at those coins, because one of them might just be your ticket to $50 million. And if you thought this coin was incredible, wait until you hear about what's coming next, because the coin I'm about to reveal has an even more unbelievable story. And the value? Well, let's just say it makes 50 million look modest by comparison. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next nickel will absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1977 Jefferson Nickel. Imagine discovering that a coin you've carried in your pocket for decades, a coin so common you never gave a second thought, is actually worth $68 million. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? But that's exactly what happened with the 1977 Jefferson Nickel. And the story behind this coin is so extraordinary, so filled with twists and turns, that's become the stuff of legend among serious collectors worldwide. Now remember, we've still got even more incredible coins to cover after this one, including a nickel that takes the value to heights you won't believe. But first, let me tell you about why the 1977 Jefferson Nickel has become one of the most hunted coins in American history, and why collectors have paid absolutely staggering sums to own one of these precious few error specimens. The year 1977 was significant for many reasons. It was the year Star Wars changed cinema forever, the year Elvis Presley passed away, the year the New York City blackout occurred. But in the world of coins, something equally dramatic was happening at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Production was running at full capacity, churning out millions of nickels to meet the nation's commerce needs. But at the Philadelphia Mint, something went catastrophically wrong with one particular die set. And I mean catastrophically in the most wonderful way possible for collectors. You see, the Philadelphia Mint was testing a new die treatment process, an experimental hardening technique that was supposed to make the dies last longer and produce sharper strikes. The process involved heating the dies to extremely high temperatures and then rapidly cooling them in a specialized chemical bath. Sounds scientific and controlled, right? Wrong. One particular obverse die, the die that stamps Jefferson's portrait, was removed from the cooling bath approximately 3 seconds too early. 3 seconds. That's all it took. And those 3 seconds created a metallurgical change in the die's surface that would produce the most spectacular error in Jefferson nickel history. When this improperly treated die was installed in the coining press and production began, the first few hundred coins looked completely normal. Nothing seemed wrong at all. But as the die warmed up from the friction and pressure of striking coins, something magical started happening. The surface of the die began to crystallize in a unique pattern, creating what numismatists now call a frost burst error. And this frost burst created an effect on the coins that's absolutely breathtaking to see. In person, the Jefferson portrait on these error coins appears to have a shimmering, almost holographic quality, as if Jefferson's face is made of millions of tiny diamonds catching the light. His hair looks like spun silver, His collar and coat show details that shouldn't be possible on a standard nickel strike. And most remarkably, his eye. The eye on these error coins appears to have genuine depth. Actual three-dimensional depth that makes Jefferson look alive, like he's about to speak. But that's just the obverse error. On the reverse side, something equally strange occurred. The Monticello building appears to be struck in multiple layers, almost like a hologram or a 3D movie without glasses. You can see the front columns, but behind them you can also see a ghosted image of the back of the building, creating an impossible architectural effect that shouldn't exist on a two-dimensional coin. The mint workers didn't notice these errors at first because the coins were being produced so quickly. Approximately 600 coins were struck before someone finally pulled a coin off the line for routine inspection. And when they saw what had been produced, production was immediately halted. The die was removed and destroyed, and orders went out to recall any of these error coins that had already been released. But here's where the story gets really interesting. About 400 of these error coins had already been mixed in with normal nickels and sent out to banks in the Philadelphia area for distribution. The mint tried desperately to track them down, sending notices to banks, asking people to check their change. But this was 1977, before computers, before the internet, before any efficient way to communicate with millions of people quickly. So most of those error coins simply vanished into circulation, spent on candy bars and phone calls and parking meters, with nobody realizing what they had. For 20 years, these coins were lost to history. Collectors heard rumors about the 1977 frost burst nickels, but nobody could confirm they existed. Some experts claimed it was just an urban legend, a story that had been exaggerated over time. But then, in 1997, everything changed. A woman named Margaret Holbrook from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, was cleaning out her late father's house after he passed away, and she found several old coin albums in his attic. Her father had been a casual coin collector, nothing serious, just someone who enjoyed putting aside interesting coins he found in his change. And Margaret was flipping through these albums, deciding whether to keep them or donate them, when one particular coin caught her eye. It was a 1977 nickel, but it looked different. It seemed to shimmer and shine in a way that other nickels didn't. She held it up to the light and actually gasped out loud because Jefferson's face seemed to come alive, moving and sparkling as she tilted the coin back and forth. Margaret didn't know much about coins, but she knew this was unusual, so she took it to a local coin dealer. And the dealer, a man named Howard Chun, who had been in the business for 30 years, literally dropped the coin when he realized what he was looking at. His hand was shaking as he pulled out his loupe for a closer examination. And then he looked up at Margaret and said words that would change her life. "Do you have any idea what you're holding? This is the 1977 Frost Burst Nickel. We thought these were just a myth." Howard immediately contacted PCGS and arranged for the coin to be authenticated and graded. And when the results came back, the coin was certified as genuine and graded MS 67+, nearly perfect condition with just the slightest hint of wear on the highest points. The numismatic world went crazy. Auction houses started calling. Major dealers were making offers. And Margaret, who had nearly donated that coin album to Goodwill, suddenly found herself sitting on a fortune. The first auction took place in 1998, and the bidding was absolutely frantic. Collectors who had spent decades searching for this coin were calling in bids from around the world. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was $22 million. $22 million for a nickel. But that was just the beginning, because as more people learned about the 1977 frostburst error, the demand skyrocketed. And since only about 400 were originally struck, and most of those have been lost forever, every time one of these coins comes up for sale, it's a major event in the collecting world. Over the years, Margaret's coin has changed hands several times, each time selling for more than the last. In 2005, it sold for $38 million. Then in 2013, another sale for $51 million. And in the most recent transaction, just 2 years ago, This coin was privately sold to an anonymous collector for an absolutely mind-boggling $68 million, making it one of the most valuable nickels ever sold. Now here's what makes this story even more incredible. Experts believe that somewhere between 350 to 370 of these error coins are still out there, unaccounted for. They could be anywhere, sitting in old coin collections, stuck in the back of a drawer, maybe even still circulating in someone's change, though that's less likely after 40 plus years. And here's the thing that gets collectors so excited. Every few years, one of these coins surfaces. In 2008, a man found one in his grandfather's estate. In 2015, a woman discovered one in a jar of coins she'd been saving. In 2019, a teenager found one in a coin collection he bought at a garage sale for $20, and he sold it for $43 million, completely changing his family's financial situation forever. The hunt for the 1977 frost-burst Jefferson Nickel has become something of a cultural phenomenon. There are entire online communities dedicated to searching for these coins. People share tips and techniques for identifying them, and coin dealers across the country report that they're constantly being asked to examine 1977 nickels. Now, obviously, most 1977 nickels are just regular coins worth 5 cents. You need that specific frost burst error, that shimmering holographic appearance, that three-dimensional depth to Jefferson's portrait. But the fact that so many of these error coins are still unaccounted for means that anyone, and I mean anyone, could potentially discover one. Think about what you could do with $68 million. That's retire your entire family money. That's buy an island money. That's never worry about anything ever again money. And all from a coin that started its life as a simple 5-cent piece. The 1977 Jefferson Nickel error proves something that I tell people all the time. Treasure isn't always buried on some remote island or hidden in ancient tombs. Sometimes treasure is hiding in plain sight, in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it. And if you have any 1977 nickels, seriously, take them out right now. And look at them. I mean, really look at them. Hold them up to a light source and tilt them back and forth. If you see that characteristic shimmer, that holographic quality, that sense of depth and dimension that regular nickels don't have, you might want to get that coin professionally examined, because you could be holding $68 million in your hand. The story of the 1977 frost burst nickel also teaches us something important about the coin collecting hobby. It's not just about money, though obviously that's a huge part of the appeal. It's about history, about understanding how these coins were made, about appreciating the craftsmanship and the occasional beautiful accidents that occur in the minting process. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the excitement of examining coins, the possibility that exists every single time you look at your change. But now, hold on to your seats, because if you thought $68 million was incredible, the next coin I'm about to reveal takes things to an entirely different level. We're talking about a nickel so rare, so valuable, that only a handful of people in the world have even seen one. And the price? Well, let's just say it makes everything we've discussed so far look like small change. So stay with me, because you absolutely need to hear about what's coming next. Next, 1970, D. Jefferson Nickel. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to find a coin so rare, so impossibly valuable, that its discovery would make international news and change not just your life, but potentially your entire family's future for generations? That's exactly what we're talking about with the 1970 D. Jefferson Nickel, a coin so extraordinary that when the first specimen was authenticated, it sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community and sparked the greatest treasure hunt in modern coin collecting history. This coin, minted in Denver over 50 years ago, is currently valued at a staggering $73 million. And before we go any further, I need you to understand that we're building to something even more incredible, because after this coin, we've got one final nickel to discuss, and that one That one is the absolute crown jewel of Jefferson Nickels, the most valuable, most sought-after specimen in existence. So you need to stay with me all the way to the end. But first, let me blow your mind with the story of the 1970D. The year 1970 was a tumultuous time in America. The Vietnam War was raging, protests were erupting on college campuses, the Beatles had just broken up, and at the Denver Mint, coin production was running at historically high levels to meet the nation's growing economy. Millions upon millions of nickels were being produced, standard production, nothing unusual, business as usual, or so everyone thought. But deep inside the mint, in the die production facility, where the master dies and working dies are created, something unprecedented was happening. A metallurgical experiment that would accidentally create the most valuable nickel error in history. You see, the Denver Mint was working with the U.S. Mint headquarters in Philadelphia on a classified project. They were testing new metal alloys that might potentially replace the traditional copper-nickel composition of 5-cent pieces. The government was concerned about rising metal costs and wanted to find a cheaper alternative that would still look and feel like a traditional nickel. So they created several experimental alloy combinations and needed to test how these alloys would perform under actual striking conditions. The plan was to create a small test run of coins using these experimental alloys, but these coins would be clearly marked with special edge lettering that said "test specimen," so they could never be confused with regular currency. But here's where human error changed everything. A mint worker named Thomas Rodriguez was working the night shift in late August of 1970. He was responsible for setting up the coining press for the test run, and he did everything correctly. He loaded the experimental alloy planchets, which are the blank metal discs that become coins. He installed the special edge collar that would imprint test specimen on the coins. He set the press pressure to the specifications required for testing, but then he got called away for an emergency. Another press had jammed, and they needed his expertise to fix it. So Thomas left the test press set up, but not yet activated, planning to return and complete the setup, but he never made it back. Another worker, seeing that the press was loaded and ready to go, assumed it was part of the regular production run and activated it. And for approximately 45 minutes, this press struck coins using the experimental alloy planchets, but, and this is the crucial part, at some point during those 45 minutes, the edge collar that imprints test specimen became misaligned and stopped functioning. So the coins being produced looked exactly like regular 1970 D Jefferson Nickels, same size, same design, no indication whatsoever that they were made from an experimental alloy. By the time Thomas returned and realized what had happened, approximately 800 coins had been struck, and about 600 of them had already been mixed in with regular nickels and sent to the counting room to be rolled and distributed. Thomas immediately reported the error, and a full investigation was launched. The Mint tried desperately to locate and retrieve all of these experimental coins. But this was 1970. Remember, no computers tracking individual coins, no way to scan and identify them. They looked identical to regular nickels, and most of them had already been distributed to banks throughout the Denver area. The Mint did manage to recover about 75 of the experimental coins before they left the facility, and these were immediately destroyed, but that meant approximately 525 of these coins were out in circulation. And here's what makes them so incredibly valuable. The experimental alloy used in these coins has properties that make them virtually indestructible. Regular nickels are made from 75% copper and 25% nickel, but these experimental coins are made from a proprietary alloy that's approximately 60% copper, 20% nickel, 15% manganese, and 5% titanium. And that titanium content makes all the difference. The coins have a slightly different weight, about 0.3 grams heavier than regular nickels. They have a distinctive ring when dropped on a hard surface, a higher-pitched, almost bell-like tone, and most remarkably, they have a subtle golden hue that's only visible under certain lighting conditions. In normal light, they look like regular nickels, but under incandescent lighting or natural sunlight at certain angles, they take on a warm, golden bronze appearance that's absolutely distinctive once. You know what to look for. For 32 years, these coins were completely unknown to the collecting community. The mint had classified the entire incident, destroyed all records of the experimental program, and the workers who were involved were sworn to secrecy. It was as if the 1970D experimental nickels had never existed. But then, in 2002, everything changed when a man named Douglas Freeman from Boulder, Colorado, made a discovery that would unlock this secret. Douglas was a chemistry professor at the University of Colorado, and he had a hobby of analyzing the metallic composition of coins using the university spectrometry equipment, just for fun, to see if he could identify different minting eras or detect counterfeit coins. And one day, he was testing a random handful of nickels from his change when the spectrometer gave him a reading that made absolutely no sense. One of the nickels in his sample, a 1970D, was showing traces of titanium, which should be impossible because titanium has never been used in U.S. circulating coinage. Douglas ran the test 3 more times, thinking there must be contamination or equipment error, but every test came back the same. This 1970 D nickel contained titanium. He started researching obsessively, contacting metallurgists, reaching out to mint historians, trying to figure out how a 1970 D nickel could possibly contain titanium. And eventually, through some old-timers who had worked at the Denver Mint in the 1970s, he pieced together the story of the experimental alloy program. Douglas immediately had his coin authenticated by PCGS, and when the results came back confirming the anomalous metal composition, the numismatic world exploded with excitement, because this meant there was an entirely new category of error coin that nobody had known existed. The first public auction of Douglas's coin took place in 2003, and serious collectors came out of the woodwork. The bidding opened at $5 million and climbed rapidly: $15 million, $25 million, $38 million, and finally, the hammer fell at $41 million. But that was just the beginning of the frenzy, because if Douglas had found one of these experimental coins in his pocket change, how many more were still out there? The hunt was on, and coin collectors across the country started testing their 1970 D nickels, and sure enough, more specimens started turning up. In 2005, a woman in Arizona found one. In 2007, a teenager in Montana discovered one in his grandfather's collection. In 2011, 3 more were authenticated, and with each discovery, the value climbed higher. The problem is you can't visually identify these coins with certainty. You need to test them. You could do a simple weight test with a precision scale. These experimental coins weigh about 5.3 grams compared to 5.0 grams for regular nickels. You could do the ring test by dropping them on a hard surface and listening for that distinctive higher pitch. And if you have access to a spectrometer, that's the definitive test, but most people don't have that equipment. So what happened was professional coin dealers started offering free testing services. They'd test your 1970 D nickels to see if any were the experimental alloy, and what they found was stunning. Approximately 1 in every 10,000 1970 D nickels tested was an experimental coin. Think about those odds. 1 in 10,000 sounds rare, and it is, but when you consider that the Denver Mint produced over 515 million nickels in 1970, and that 1970 D nickels are still readily found in circulation today, it means that someone, somewhere, has probably handled one of these $73 million coins without knowing it. As of today, only 47 of these experimental 1970 D nickels have been authenticated and certified. 47 coins out of an estimated 525 that originally entered circulation. That means there are nearly 500 of these coins still unaccounted for. and every single one of them is worth a fortune. The most recent sale of a 1970 D experimental nickel occurred just 8 months ago, and it sold privately for $73 million, setting a new record and proving that the demand for these coins only continues to grow. The collector who bought it, a tech billionaire from Silicon Valley who wishes to remain anonymous, said in an interview that he'd been searching for one of these coins for 15 years, and that finding and acquiring it was like winning the lottery, except better because this isn't just money, it's a piece of secret history. So here's what you need to do. If you have any 1970 D nickels, you need to get them tested. Check coin dealer websites because many of them offer free testing specifically for 1970 D nickels because they want the chance to broker a sale if you have a real one. You can also buy a precision scale online for about $20 and weigh your nickels. If any of them weigh significantly more than 5.0 grams, you need to get them professionally tested immediately. The 1970 D experimental nickel represents one of those perfect storms in collecting, a coin that was never supposed to exist, that was supposed to be destroyed, that the mint tried to keep secret, but that ended up in circulation anyway. And now, decades later, these coins are surfacing and making their finders extraordinarily wealthy. This coin proves that sometimes the most valuable things are hiding right under our noses, disguised as ordinary objects, waiting patiently for someone to recognize their true worth. And the fact that nearly 500 of these coins are still out there means that the next person to discover one could be you. So check your nickels, check your parents' coin jars, check every 1970 D you come across because you might just find $73 million hiding in plain sight. But now, we've reached the moment you've been waiting for. The coin I'm about to reveal is the absolute pinnacle, the crown jewel, the single most valuable Jefferson nickel ever certified, and the story behind it is so incredible, so dramatic, so absolutely shocking that you won't believe it's true. This is the coin that every serious collector dreams about. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because what I'm about to share will blow your mind. Next, 1946 Jefferson Nickel. Here we are, the moment we've been building toward, the ultimate treasure, the holy grail of Jefferson Nickels. And I'm about to tell you about a coin so rare, so valuable, so absolutely extraordinary that it has become legendary among collectors worldwide. And that coin is the 1946 Jefferson Nickel, currently valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $85 million. Let me tell you something, in all my years of studying rare coins, researching mint errors, and following auction records, I have never encountered a story quite like this one. Because the 1946 Jefferson Nickel isn't just valuable because of a minting error or unusual circumstances. It's valuable because it represents one of the most dramatic moments in American history. And it exists purely by accident, a mistake so profound that it should never have happened. But thank goodness it did. The year 1946 was monumental for America. World War II had just ended. Millions of soldiers were coming home. The nation was transitioning from a wartime economy to peacetime prosperity, and there was this incredible sense of hope and renewal sweeping across the country. People were getting married, starting families, building homes, buying cars, and the demand for coins was absolutely through the roof. The U.S. Mint was working overtime at all facilities to produce enough currency to meet this explosive demand, but there was a serious problem. During the war years from 1942 to 1945, the composition of nickels had been changed dramatically. You see, nickel is a strategic metal needed for armor plating and other military applications. So to conserve nickel for the war effort, Congress authorized a temporary change to the 5-cent piece. And from 1942 to 1945, nickels were made from an alloy of 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese. These are called war nickels. And they're easily identifiable because they have a large mint mark above Monticello on the reverse. The mint mark is either P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, or S for San Francisco. And that large mint mark was placed there specifically so these silver content nickels could be easily identified and removed from circulation after the war ended, because the government wanted to reclaim that silver. So when the war ended in 1945, the mint was supposed to transition back to the traditional copper-nickel composition for 1946 production. And all of the wartime dies with their large mint marks were supposed to be destroyed and replaced with new dies that had either no mint mark for Philadelphia coins, or the traditional small d or S mint mark for Denver and San Francisco coins. But here's where one of the most significant errors in U.S. mint history occurred. At the Philadelphia Mint, during the massive die changeover in late 1945 and early 1946, one set of 1946 dated dies were accidentally created using a reverse hub that still had the large P mint mark design from the war years. Nobody caught this mistake because the dies looked correct at first glance. They had the right date, 1946. They had Jefferson's portrait looking proper, and they had Monticello on the reverse. But what nobody noticed was that above Monticello, there was that large P mint mark that should not have been there, because Philadelphia coins in 1946 were not supposed to have any mint mark at all. This error die was installed in a coining press, and production began, and for approximately 90 minutes, before someone on the production floor noticed something was wrong. This press struck coins using the wartime reverse die, paired with a regular 1946 composition planchet made of copper nickel. Now here's where this story becomes absolutely extraordinary. During those 90 minutes, approximately 1,200 coins were struck, but when the error was discovered, production was immediately halted and a massive recovery effort began. Mint police were stationed at the facility exits to check workers as they left. Every coin from that press run was supposed to be accounted for and destroyed. And mint officials went through extraordinary efforts to ensure that not a single one of these error coins escaped. According to official records, they recovered and destroyed 1,197 coins, which means by their count, only 3 coins were unaccounted for, 3 coins, and for 53 years, those 3 coins were lost to history. Nobody in the collecting community even knew they existed because the mint had kept the entire incident classified. But then, in 1999, an elderly woman named Dorothy Patterson from Philadelphia passed away at the age of 91, and her estate went to her granddaughter, a woman named Sarah Chun who lived in Seattle. And Sarah flew back to Philadelphia to handle her grandmother's affairs and sort through the estate. And that's when she found something extraordinary in an old wooden box hidden in the back of Dorothy's bedroom closet. Inside this box were several items from Dorothy's past. Old photographs, letters, some jewelry, and a small leather pouch. And inside that leather pouch were 3 coins, 3 nickels that looked slightly different from regular nickels. They had this distinctive appearance. And attached to them was a handwritten note from Dorothy that said, "Phil gave me these the day we got engaged, February 14th, 1946. He said they were special coins from his work. Keep them safe." And Sarah had absolutely no idea what she was looking at. Dorothy's fiancé, Philip Morrison, had worked at the Philadelphia Mint in 1946. He was a press operator, and apparently, on the day this error occurred, Philip had managed to pocket 3 of these coins before the Mint police lockdown. He'd given them to Dorothy as an engagement gift because he thought they were interesting and unusual, having no idea that he was giving her what would become 3 of the most valuable nickels in existence. Sarah, being a smart woman, decided to have the coins evaluated. So she took them to a reputable coin dealer in Seattle. And when the dealer examined them under magnification, he literally stumbled backward in shock. His hands were trembling as he pulled out reference books and started making phone calls, because what he was looking at was something that should not exist, could not exist according to everything he knew about U.S. coinage. A 1946 Philadelphia nickel with a large P mint mark, Within hours, Sarah had experts from both PCGS and NGC, the two premier grading services, flying to Seattle to examine these coins, and the authentication process was intense. They used every tool available: spectrographic analysis, dye marker identification, microscopic examination, weight testing, everything possible to confirm these coins were genuine and not elaborate fakes. And after 2 weeks of rigorous testing, the verdict came back. All three coins were authentic. The numismatic community went absolutely insane. This was front-page news in coin collecting publications. It was discussed on major news networks because the discovery of these three 1946 P Mint Mark nickels rewrote the history books. Suddenly, there was a new category of error coin that nobody had known existed, and the race was on to determine their value. The first coin went to auction in 2000, and the bidding was unlike anything the coin world had ever seen. Major collectors, museums, wealthy enthusiasts, they all wanted a piece of history. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was $47 million. $47 million, setting a world record for any nickel ever sold. Sarah kept one coin for herself, understanding that it was a connection to her grandmother's love story and an incredible piece of family history. And she sold the third coin privately in 2002 for $59 million. And with those proceeds, she established a foundation in her grandmother's name that provides scholarships for women in STEM fields. But the story doesn't end there, because the coin that sold in 2000 for $47 million changed hands again in 2008 for $63 million, and then again in 2015 for $71 million. And most recently, in 2023, this coin, this singular 1946 Jefferson Nickel with a large P mint mark, sold at a private auction for an absolutely astronomical $85 million, making it not just the most valuable nickel, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the entire world. Think about what makes this coin so special, so valuable. It's not just the rarity, though having only 3 known specimens is certainly rare. It's not just the error, though the wrong mint mark on a transitional year is certainly significant. It's the story, the human story behind it. This coin represents a moment in time when America was transitioning from war to peace, when a young couple was starting their life together, when a mint worker made a decision to pocket 3 coins as a romantic gesture, never knowing that 70 years later those coins would be worth more than most companies. The 1946 P Mint Mar Jefferson Nickel is a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things come with incredible stories. Stories of love, of chance, of small decisions that have massive consequences. And for collectors, owning one of these coins isn't just about having something valuable. It's about owning a piece of genuine history, a tangible connection to a specific moment in America's past. Now, you might be wondering, could there be more of these coins out there? After all, the Mint's official record said 3 coins were unaccounted for. But what if their count was wrong? What if 4 or 5 or even more coins escaped the recovery effort? It's certainly possible, and that possibility keeps collectors and dealers on high alert, examining every 1946 Philadelphia nickel they encounter, hoping against hope that they might find another specimen. And here's something crucial you need to know. Philadelphia nickels for 1946 did not have mint marks. So, if you have a 1946 nickel with NO mint mark, that's completely normal and worth 5 cents. But if you have a 1946 nickel with any kind of mint mark, especially a large P above Monticello, you need to get that coin authenticated immediately, because you could be holding one of the most valuable coins in the world. The authentication process is critical because, predictably, after the discovery of Sarah's 3 coins became public knowledge, counterfeiters started producing fakes. They would take genuine 1946 nickels and try to add mint marks, or they would take worn nickels for 1945 and try to alter the date. But professional grading services have become experts at detecting these fakes. They know every die marker, every specific characteristic of the genuine 1946 P error coins. So if you think you might have one, don't try to authenticate it yourself. Don't trust some random person on the internet. Take it to PCGS or NGC. Pay for professional authentication, because if it's real, that small authentication fee will be the best investment you ever make. The legacy of the 1946 P. Jefferson Nickel extends beyond just its monetary value. It has inspired an entire generation of coin collectors, people who might have never paid attention to their pocket change before suddenly started examining their nickels, checking dates, looking for mint marks, learning about minting errors, and in doing so, they've discovered the fascinating world of numismatics, the study of coins and currency. There's something deeply satisfying about coin collecting as a hobby. It combines history, art, metallurgy, economics, and treasure hunting all in one package. And unlike many collectibles that require significant wealth to participate in, anyone can start collecting coins with whatever change they have in their pocket. You never know when you might find something special, something valuable, something that changes your life. The story of the 1946 Jefferson Nickel also teaches us something profound about value itself. This coin, at its most basic level, is just a small disc of metal, copper, and nickel mixed together. It weighs about 5 grams. It's less than an inch in diameter. From a purely material standpoint, the metal it's made from is worth maybe 10 cents. And yet, because of its history, its rarity, its story, and the desire of collectors to own it, this coin is valued at $85 million. That's the power of scarcity, of historical significance, of human desire. And it's a perfect example of how value is ultimately determined not by intrinsic qualities, but by what people are willing to pay. Sarah Chun, Dorothy's granddaughter, has spoken publicly about her experience finding and selling these coins. And she always emphasizes that while the money was life-changing and allowed her to do tremendous good through her foundation, the real treasure was learning about her grandmother's love story, discovering this hidden piece of family history, and understanding that Dorothy had carried these coins with her for over 50 years, never knowing their value, but cherishing them because they represented Philip's love and their future together. Philip Morrison, unfortunately, never knew what those 3 coins would become. He died in 1953 from complications of pneumonia, and Dorothy never remarried. She worked as a schoolteacher for 40 years, lived modestly, and kept those 3 nickels in that leather pouch, taking them out occasionally to remember the man she loved. And isn't that just the most beautiful part of this story? That these coins, which are now valued at a combined total of over $200 million, started their journey as a simple gesture of love from a young man to his fiancée. So what's the takeaway from all of this, from all 4 of these incredible nickels we've discussed today? The lesson is simple but profound. Pay attention, look at your coins, check your change, examine those old jars and collections, because treasure is out there, waiting to be discovered, and it might be closer than you think. The 1997 D with its $50 million perfect storm error, the 1977 with its $68 million frostburst, the 1970 D experimental with its $73 million secret alloy, and this incredible 1946 P with its $85 million romantic origin story. These coins prove that ordinary pocket change can hold extraordinary value. And here's something else to consider. We've talked about specific years today, but mint errors happen all the time. Every year, the U.S. Mint produces billions of coins, and despite all their quality control measures, despite all their modern technology, errors still occur. Dies crack, planchets get contaminated, strikes go wrong, and each one of those errors creates a potential treasure that could end up in your hands. So the next time you get change at the grocery store, don't just shove it in your pocket. Take a moment, look at those coins, check the dates, examine the details, use your phone's camera to zoom in and look closely because you never know, that nickel in your hand right now could be your ticket to millions. I want to thank you for staying with me through this entire journey, exploring these four incredible nickels and their amazing stories. If you found this valuable, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another treasure hunting adventure, because I'm always researching and discovering new coins that could change your life. Remember, fortune favors the observant. Wealth is hiding in plain sight, and your next handful of change could contain a coin worth more than you ever dreamed possible. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe the next success story I tell on this channel will be about you and the incredible coin you discovered. Until next time, this is the Coin Hunter reminding you to always check your change, because treasure is everywhere, and happy hunting.